Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. I have long said that the herd mentality that you must go to college or university right out of high school is just wrong thinking. There are reasons that it would be the best path for some, but with the direction of most higher education, this has become just simply outdated thinking. Now, with increasing scrutiny on these institutions, corruption is being uncovered. An investigative report came out the other day by Luke Rosiak of the Daily Wire, and he says that a historically black university whose president is under scrutiny for plagiarism allegations, reported on by the Daily Wire, of course, is a criminal enterprise to divert federal and state funds, according to a federal lawsuit filed by the school's former vice provost for academic affairs. It is one of 4 similar lawsuits filed in the last few months against the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, its president, Heidi Anderson, and its provost, Rondell Allen, and its diversity, equity, and inclusion czar, Jason Cesars, that all follow a similar pattern. A faculty member allegedly discovers wrongdoing at the university and then is retaliated against by the university's DEI office. Claims from the lawsuits paint a picture of a university with almost no academic standards, that admits 90% of applicants and looks the other way at cheating and truancy to avoid worsening its, get this, 17% on-time graduation rate and keep the federal student loan money flowing, of course. The lawsuit filed July 28th by Sandeep Gopalan, I guess is how you pronounce that. Gopalan is a Rhodes Scholar who, until recently, was the school's vice president for research and vice provost for academic affairs, and said that after he claims to have exposed a scheme by Anderson and other top administrators to steal thousands of iPads, the university axed Gopalan's program and PhD students in retaliation. The students were funded by a $4.6 million grant from the Federal Department of Education that Gopalan had secured, and the university had no ability to terminate. But it dismissed the scholars anyway, falsely suggesting that the Trump administration had cut off funding to the historically black college, he said. Quote, as a result of this blatantly unlawful act, highly valuable research on cancer, environmental pollution, and AI, representing thousands of hours of research work by the plaintiff, PhD students, and research staff, has been stopped, the lawsuit said. As part of his duties monitoring compliance for the university's accreditor, Gopalan learned that Rondell Allen and Heidi Anderson were embezzling iPads intended for poor minorities and diverted those resources to their cronies. The thousands of iPads were purchased from a federal grant awarded by the U.S. Department of Commerce, is what's in the lawsuit. Quote, after being convinced that the scam was organized criminal activity based on direct observation of the devices, stealth storage, and evidence, fraudulent documentation, even attempts to trick the auditors, the apparent enablement of concealment by the university system of Maryland, Dr. Gopalan sent whistleblower letters to federal agents, the Maryland Attorney General Office, and the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland in June of 2024, it said. Soon after, Anderson began asking if the PhD students in Gopalan's Futures Institute program, the highest performing students at the school, were black. Gopalan explained that students were selected based on strict merit, but the projects had a focus on minority populations. Anderson expressed displeasure, the lawsuit said. And in December of 2024, the lawsuit states that he filed additional complaints about Heidi Anderson and Rondell Allen, embezzlement, diversion of federal funds, fraudulent reporting of student data to deceive the government, fraud in connection with physical plant and facilities, including to Chancellor J. Perman, who oversees all the public universities in the state. And according to the complaint, Anderson and Jason Cesars began conspiring to steal Dr. Gopan's Futures Institute grant of $4.6 million and notified PhD students that their scholarships were being revoked. The Department of Education had to step in, writing that the grant had not been terminated and ordering Maryland to restore it. The willingness to terminate the university's brightest scholars was all the more remarkable because UMES has some of the worst student outcomes in the United States under Rondell Allen and Heidi Anderson. The 4-year graduation rate is 17%, whereas the 6-year graduation rate is 35%, and graduates' median incomes are on par with high school graduates. Did you hear what I said? The median incomes are on par with high school graduates. These are people who have spent 4 to 6 years in their university, and they're not making any more money than if you just went directly from high school, graduated high school, and went into the workforce. They have a lot more debt. To Dr. Gopan's astonishment, Rondell Allen and Dr. Heidi Anderson were indifferent to those outcomes and appeared resentful whenever he mentioned the need to improve. Anderson is a pharmacist, and Allen, another psychiatrist who appointed provost in 2022. Quote, Allen has no record of original intellectual publications and had copied and pasted Dr. Gopan's work to steal credit, the lawsuit said. The suit asked the court to direct the University System of Maryland Board of Regents and the Office of Attorney General to claw back Jay Perman's $1.4 million salary, Heidi Anderson's $450,000 salary, and Rondell Allen's $300,000 salary, and appropriate the amounts from Cesars. Now, on Monday, Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown filed a response in court, and it noted that Gopan was acting in his own as his own lawyer and sought to have the case dismissed based on, in part, on legal technicalities. The claim that the public college and its officials had sovereign immunity and that he did not provide enough details showing he was a victim of intentional racial discrimination. A second lawsuit was filed on August 1st under the pseudonym Jacob Doe, a faculty member who says that he directly observed the top administrators of the university engaging in criminal activities. When Anderson took over in 2018, UMES had an enrollment of 4,800 students. It now has only 3,000. The passing rate in Anderson's own field of pharmacy fell from 95% to 57%. Allen became provost a few years later, despite a background in discount pharmacies and no record meriting a provost position. Quote, Plaintiff found one cause of the university's terrible outcomes: rogue administrators led by the president Heidi Anderson and provost Rondell Allen turning the vast investments by the federal and state governments in the university into a private looting opportunity. Unlike other normal universities where administrators are appointed pursuant to merit and credentials and experience, at UMES, many were appointed based on a propensity for corruption and collusion in Anderson and Allen's scheme, the lawsuit says. Quote, after directly witnessing and determining that there was organized criminal activity to siphon off federal and state funds led by defendant one, that's Heidi Anderson and Rondell Allen, in summer and fall of 2024, plaintiff filed reports with the USM chancellor and board and state and federal officials, and the USM initiated a cosmetic investigation intended to save Anderson rather than determine the truth, it said. Upon learning about the plaintiff's complaints, the defendants took retaliatory actions under the guise of a fake complaint, alleging in December of 2024 that the plaintiff had created a hostile working environment for one temporary worker whose contract was due to expire in 2 months. An Iranian student who the complaint claimed was allowed to stay in the country as a reward for going along with the scheme. Now, Karazars, the DEI director, accused Doe of sexually harassing the temp, even though no evidence was provided that the pair had ever been in a room alone together. Cesars himself left his previous job after being accused of sexual assault, and the suit said that Cesars is unemployable in the U.S. higher education, and his grossly inflated salary and continued promotion by Anderson are bribes for intimidating faculty and staff who oppose illegal activity. The temp worker's primary boss was a different professor who witnessed every encounter between Doe and the temp, but Cesars did not interview him, is what the lawsuit said. Cesars was accused of telling the temp worker that, quote, people say Turkish women are beautiful, but I prefer Persian women. And all work and no fun makes her a dull girl. Doe said that these statements were fabricated, but that they would not meet the standard of sexual harassment, even if they were true. He said the temp worker had falsified timesheets, leading him to admonish her, and the false claim was in retaliation. Nevertheless, Doe was suspended, banned from campus, and his students were told that he was fired. He filed a complaint against Cesars, which was ignored, he said. In a similar lawsuit, it was filed on August 22nd by Chiu Fang, an award-winning computer science lecturer, who said that she was retaliated against for raising concerns that the University of Maryland East Shore had almost no academic standards and condoned cheating in order to keep students' tuition flowing. With enrollment plummeting, the school seemingly began relying on foreign students from countries like Iran and others to fill slots. Although the HBCU was a low-performing institution that few Americans wanted to attend, foreigners who wanted to come to America could use it to gain a student visa. Iranians began taking over the facility as well, and Assad Azemi became chair of the computer science program. Quote, since his arrival, Azemi expressed a preference for hiring Iranians and multiplied hiring manipulated hiring processes to create vacancies for his friends. This is what the lawsuit says, citing one job search in which 80% of the candidates were Iranian. Azemi took all of the course preparation that Fang had created and appropriated it for himself while pushing her out of the teaching slot after she was unwilling to give students passing grades, even if they skipped classes and did not know the material. Fang said the college admitted students with low high school grades and SAT scores, and most proved unable to master the content in her advanced computer science class, with many not showing up for class at all even. But when Azemi taught the course, the failure rate was, you guessed it, 0%. That was the failure rate. Quote, many students plagiarized code from the internet and were unable to answer basic syntax questions. Dr. Azemi awarded nearly all students a grade of B or higher. This is what Fang said. Azemi encourages cheating and apparently fraudulent practices to maintain a false facade of enrollment to pad his salary and deceive the federal government. This is what she's saying that he pressured her to change students' grades. On March 31st, Fang emailed Chancellor Perman and filed a complaint via the USM fraud hotline with information about enrollment, grading, and attendance fraud in specific courses. But investigators never contacted Fang for more information, she said. Quote, Perman knew that he would be embarrassed if the fraud were to be publicly revealed because of the scandals of other universities under his watch. This is what the lawsuit says. Perman's assistant merely referred her to Cesar's, who wrote a report taking Azemi's side without interviewing Fang's witnesses. This is what she said. She said, then Anderson personally emailed Fang to terminate her without explanation. Quote, the abrupt, unlawful firing, whilst the appeal process was ongoing, is illegal retaliation, Fang said. Now, Fang said Anderson developed personal animosity toward her years earlier. Fang had also worked as a personal trainer at the school's gym, and Heidi Anderson, who is obese, as she put it, asked a school coach to help her lose weight. The coach refused to continue helping Anderson due to her poor attitude and delegated it to Fang. Well, Anderson insisted on losing weight while refusing to do the necessary workout and became resentful, as she puts it. So, that sounds like a little bit of history there. But on October 31st, Maryland filed a reply to the federal court that was similar to its motion in the first case, raising technical legal objections without denying specific allegations. So they're not saying that what's being said is wrong. They're just saying, well, there's a technicality in this lawsuit, and we shouldn't go forward with it. The university's former director of human resources, Rosalie Hornbuckle, also filed a whistleblower complaint, though not a lawsuit. Hornbuckle said she was terminated several months into her job after identifying payments to individuals who were placed in fictitious jobs and other misconduct. The complaint alleged a large number of employees remained on paid leave for long periods after being accused of wrongdoing. She said in one case, Cesar's placed a staff member on paid leave after a complaint of discriminating against white students. 6 months later, Cesar's claimed that he had been investigating but had not taken any notes. So he's been investigating, just forgot to write anything down. 6 months later, so they're still getting paid for 6 months of work without doing any work. As another cited example, a finance employee arrested with a large amount of marijuana packaged for sale was provided surveillance instead of simply being terminated. Hornbuckle couldn't understand why until learning that he was the nephew of the school's budget director, she said. The Daily Wire previously reported on a fourth lawsuit by former agriculture professor Donna Satelli, Satterley, I guess is how you pronounce that, who said that a Kenyan who was incapable of writing in English at the level required of university professor took over her department and made her do much of the work, while black faculty took credit and received much higher salaries. After she called for a study that would publish salary information broken down by race, Cesar's DEI department accused her of bullying her boss. and she was placed on transitional terminal leave. Yeah. October 31st, Maryland's Attorney General filed a reply in court saying that Satterley signed papers agreeing not to sue the university in exchange for 9 months of severance, and that the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission declined to pursue a complaint that she filed with it. They were also separately obtained a contract signed in August of 2019 by President Anderson with Lance Andre Lucas for a cyber warrior diversity program. Wow, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? A cyber warrior diversity program. The next year, Lucas pleaded guilty to bribing a state lawmaker $42,500 to create a state law pushing such a program because he anticipated that it would benefit his company. Quote, "I'm from Baltimore for real. For real, Baltimore. This is the least illegal thing I've ever done," he told the Maryland delegate, Cheryl Glenn, as he handed her cash in his Porsche. The contract signed by Anderson said that the state of Maryland is paying a total of $10,000 per student. The Cyber Warrior Diversity Program direct cost are $7,000 or 70%. University of Maryland Eastern Shore Cyber Warrior Diversity Program administrative cost are $3,000 or 30%. That's the quote. And again, another quote, "Once payment is made to University of Maryland Eastern Shore by the state of Maryland through the MHEC, they have 30 to 90 days period of grace to pay Digit All City." That's Digit All City for program direct costs incurred, is what it says. So it said Lucas's firm would run a computer science program, basically saying that, quote, the SWDP courses offer the hard and soft skills needed to work in this industry. It is not clear why the school did not simply use its existing computer science program, taught by faculty like Fang for that. The bill created the program allocating $2.5 million to black colleges to create programs, quote, to train students in computer networking and cybersecurity, and said the government entity at each institution is responsible for administering the program at that institution. Spokesman for Anderson and Chancellor Perman both declined comment, of course. Obviously it's in litigation, right? Anderson hired a lawyer and threatened the Daily Wire with a lawsuit after it presented side-by-side academic papers showing thousands of words of her dissertation were identical to older papers by others. University spokesman Robert Vickers said that the lawyer was hired by Anderson personally and not by the school. So at least she's paying for it out of the funds that she stole. But anyway, I thought this very interesting, and this is just one university, University of Maryland, and where we see that at a public university that there is a lot of corruption and a lot of basically it's just a scam, right? I mean, when you are giving out false grades. These students are not learning to code or whatever the case may be. They're just given a document that says that they graduated from this university. But what about the I mean, again, this is just one investigation into one university, but what about the whole higher education system as a whole? I found this interesting, and it comes from Max Schwartz, and he kind of goes into some of the things that I have said on the podcast here as well. But this goes back about 4 years. Now, Max Schwartz is assistant op-ed editor at the Daily Collegian. And about almost exactly 4 years ago, this is what he said. He said, college is a big fat scam. That's how he starts this out. College is a big fat scam. He says, I come from a family of educated people, and my relatives and doctorates and masters outnumber the obsolete bachelor degree holders. But that same degree that once promised a leg up is now worth job security at best. I see firsthand at family dinners and networking opportunities just how much my college education is being put to use. Spoiler, it's not much. He says, I should mention that while I've had some great professors at the University of Massachusetts, very few have prepared me for the type of work I completed at my corporate internship in New York City. It's a different culture in the real world. And what makes sense here means nothing there, and vice versa. One thing I shared, though, it's that success is not hinged on doing what you think you should do. My gut tells me that I should be going to college, earning perfect scores, and landing just the right internships so I can leave my 4-year degree with an exemplary education and enough job experience under my belt to land the perfect position. My gut, however, is often wrong. And that's become more apparent as I've worked my way through each of these stages. Here's the thing. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I've held a 4.0 for 5 semesters. I've formed meaningful relationships with my professors. And I've even landed some incredible internships. But nowhere along that road was I told that I had done it right. Most students don't decide to attend college because they're able to easily recognize the way their performance over those 4 years of higher education helped their future prospects. Instead, they attend college out of normalcy. If everybody else is doing it and you can afford it, there's no reason not to. The key part of that sentence is affordability. College, being the time of our lives, is the case only for those who can afford it. The total cost of an in-state attendance of UMass was just over $10,000 in 2000 and 2001 academic year. The cost of attendance for in-state students increased by more than 200% 1 decade later in 2010, and has since continued to skyrocket. For a student wishing to attend UMass in 2021, they are expected to afford $30,000 of in-state tuition and fees including room and board. If this trend continues, 18-year-olds wishing to attend UMass in 2030 will be charged the equivalent of a 2022 Audi A4 sports car every single year. Despite the price tag, we rarely see college graduates talking about how much they regret attending college. You may hear some complain their college wasn't right for them or that they hated their sorority, but very few will admit that college itself was not worth it. If we rephrase the question and ask college graduates if they believe their institution prepared them to land a postgraduate career, I imagine that would elicit a much different answer. Landing a career, from what I've gathered as an undergraduate student in search of a career, he says, is much more reliant on connections than on classes and relationships with professors. If a majority of high school seniors decided that their main priority after college was landing a job rather than having a good time, then we could see a much larger shift from humanity majors to business. And there's a reason for that too. UMass, Inzenberg School of Management, prides itself on high job placements among their undergraduate graduate populations. So much so, they've begun to process the process of limiting UMass students from internally transferring. Eisenberg, like many professionals today, knows how important networking is for landing a job, and the school has provided students with the networking and LinkedIn guide with tips on how to properly network. Networking is arguably one of the most important skills business students are taught, and it's because it works. Knowing the right people makes all the difference in getting your foot in the door, which for many students is the only thing stopping them from landing jobs. Now, while connections can help you get a shot at a job, they don't guarantee you a permanent spot at the company. Neither the best business courses nor the perfect connection can do is all they can do is tell you how to act once you get the job. I'm fortunate enough, he says, to have been in the position where I connected with the right people and landed the interview, but it was my character being tested once I actually began talking to the recruiters and the CTOs. Did I need to go $30,000 in debt every year to land these interviews? Absolutely not. Am I fortunate to have been talking to the right people? Absolutely. But what we shouldn't be doing is pretending that my required college curriculum is what got me here. Going into debt is bad, but a necessary evil in attending college. Attending college, if done right, will be about, coalescing what you've learned in your classes with a mix of networking opportunities. The modern college curriculum has its positives, but much greater value lies in using this college this college platform to connect with the people who will get you where you want to be. I've been learning some skills in my classes that have helped me, no doubt. But what I've learned most about landing a job experience lies entirely in what college hasn't taught me, and completely in what I've needed to teach myself. I just thought that was really good. I think that, yes, there are times when and situations where you need a college degree, but just simply to rack up that much debt just for a degree, and particularly if you're going for a degree that isn't really going to get you a job that's going to pay much of anything, I think we're doing our young people a disfavor. And I think that the college system, in a lot of ways, whether it be directly like Maryland here, or indirectly by just racking up debt and not really giving them much for it, is kind of a scam. And it's becoming corrupt. And I'd love to hear your story, and I'd love to hear what you have when it comes to your thoughts on it. And of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.